Bird pulls up for three, boom, knocks it down.
Curry from the corner at three, puts it in.
For overtime, makes it Garrett. Right.
Welcome to the latest edition of the MVP cast from me, Mark Woods. One of the biggest names and biggest figures in the world of basketball joining us in this edition. He's the man in charge of FIBA. It's Secretary General Andreas Zagklis. Now, I had the chance to catch up with him just before the World Cup, of course, which ended last weekend. Spain crowned world champions for the second time in their history with a fantastic performance in the final against Argentina. Of course, lots of surprises, twists and turns. The USA foremost, finishing in a lowly 7th place. But I spoke to Andreas principally for an article you might have read on ESPN.com. But I thought, why not play the full interview and you can hear what he has to say about the state of the world of basketball.
Andreas, thanks for talking to us. Obviously, you took over FIBA under unusual, quite sad circumstances, but now it's your FIBA, and you've come in and you've had a look around. Obviously, haven't been associated before, but how do you see the organisation, but also the basketball environment around the world at this point?
Well, first of all, 2019 is a year of delivery for us, so immediately we had to get into a total operational mode. World Cup, the two junior World Cups under 19, and of course continental events as important as Eurobasket women. At the same time, running our regular every 4 years electoral assemblies in every continent, leading to our World Congress, where we will establish the strategy for the next 4 years. So it is a very interesting, I must say, combination, because on the one side we are in full speed operationally before the biggest ever World Cup, and at the same time we have to take a moment, step back, reflect, and say where we want to see ourselves in a few years. And I think where we want to see ourselves in a few years is a bigger FIBA family, which means a bigger basketball family. I think we want to see more women participating in all levels of our sport, and definitely we want to see a great delivery of a 3-on-3 tournament next year in Tokyo, in the debut of our new discipline in the Olympics.
You mentioned the World Cup, and obviously the premise of the World Cup, rather than the World Championships when it was rebranded, was to make this the big event. Almost level with the Olympics. Yet you go into a World Cup in which, particularly the US, but other countries don't have all their top players. The US is sending very much a kind of B team towards that. How does that impact for you on the competition and the value that you would like to see this competition have when we get out to China in the summer?
Well, I must say that based on the rosters we've seen so far, the preliminary rosters, I would beg to differ. I don't see any B teams going to the World Cup. I see really top talent coming. This is what we wanted, and I was very pleased to see how the players, having gone through, experienced or heard of, seen this for the first time 16-month qualification process from November 17 until February 19, all this road to the World Cup has given us a great momentum, I believe. And of course, it's in a very big country. It's in a country where I was pleased when I met the Minister of Sport. He told me the first minute of our meeting, he said, "You know, your sport is the most popular in my country." That was very reassuring, of course. So we have high expectations of this World Cup. And first of all, we need to make sure that the players have a very good experience. And we will do that by putting extra focus this time. We have made additional investments for the players to have as good as possible an experience in this World Cup.
When you have a chat with Adam Silver, lawyer to lawyer, I guess, what does the conversation go to in terms of getting players committed to, I guess, to FIBA as a concept in international basketball? Some ebb and flow. Obviously, some will play just at the Olympics, don't play elsewhere. What is that sales pitch that you would make to a player, perhaps watching this, to say, we want you at our competitions, we want you playing because national team basketball means sufficient to you, to everybody else?
Well, we don't talk lawyer to lawyer. We talk, as a basketball person to basketball person. And I think, and it has been proven that the NBA really values the collaboration and values both what it means to the NBA, but also what it means to the players to play for their country, to represent their country. So I believe the players themselves have expressed in the lead up to the World Cup how important it is to represent the country, to wear the national team jersey. And of course, it's our job to put the right instruments in place and the right infrastructure and the right conditions for them to perform at the top level.
Can't talk about World Cup without mentioning the W word, windows. Obviously, you've noted the big crowds that we've seen for national team games, and that was, I guess, the premise of the idea. The flip side of that is obviously players aren't available during the season of NBA, Euroleague players. Have you explored any kind of compromise change to that for the next World Cup we might see just an evolution in that idea?
Well, first of all, we need to say that the experience of the qualifying games, call it windows or call it as qualifying international window periods or qualifying games, both November, February, June, July and September, has been overall very successful. How it was received by the audiences, by the fans, despite at the beginning quite some controversy, I must say. And I did say, I think, at one point during the first couple of months of my new mandate that I did feel that at times we were a car really on a really high speed, despite at moments going on three wheels, and but still on a very high speed. And I think these values of playing regularly, home and away games to qualify to the big tournaments, are really at the heart of this new competition system. Of course, improvements can always happen. Of course, optimizations are part of what we need to do. But first, we need to have a proper evaluation. And we have seen only half the cycle. The other half of the cycle, which means the qualification to the continental cups, Eurobasket, AmeriCup, Asia Cup, and Afrobasket, is starting very soon. And I think also the decisions that we took last week at the executive committee, optimizing already the system of qualification for the Continental Cups 2021, is a sign of us understanding what the feedback has been so far, adjusting, but without changing our principles.
You came in with a very conciliatory tone towards Euroleague, and you said that it's time to maybe put some of the differences aside to try and collaborate. I mean, where are you in that process at this point to try and, I guess, bridge the gap that was there in the past?
Well, as I told you, we are in a full operational mode in view of the World Cup. They also have had a very busy season, and they are planning also the next season. From our side, I would maintain that there is dialogue to take place, and this will not take place publicly, at least not the bulk of it, because perhaps, with all the respect to the press and of course the interest that our fans have, sometimes in the past perhaps we've put a bit too much on the media of that discussion and negotiation at times. So I think that the main message is, and I believe that the clubs have understood it, the new qualification system, the windows, were not there to hurt either the clubs or the players or the EuroLeague. I believe a lot in the synergy between club competition and national team competition. And this is compatible even during the season. I strongly believe that. Why? Because we have with the national teams the possibility to attract audience which is not the typical club audience. And then once we attract this new audience, a few days later our leagues, including EuroLeague, could really make this audience their new clients. So this, what we call the heartbeat of basketball during the season, is really something that we should really take good care of and pay attention to, in my opinion.
Speaking of new audience, you've got a big league to launch in Africa, collaboration with the NBA next year. I mean, in terms of joint working, in terms of where you see that you can both benefit, that partnership element to that, how valuable, or what's the value to FIBA, and what do you think the value will be to basketball in Africa?
I think it's a unique opportunity. I must say that, and we're very excited to start this new endeavor. Already the first steps of preparation have taken place, and in a good rhythm. Both our regional office in Africa and the NBA Africa team are working closely together, and there is of course a coordination at the top, which frequently happens, and good collaboration. So I think what my predecessors built, I have the opportunity now perhaps to take it to the next level by working together with our NBA colleagues on a league. in a continent that is with a huge potential. And of course, they see there a big commercial potential and growing the game, and that is a common goal, growing the game. From our side, we see the big opportunity to have club basketball developed in Africa, to really develop new stars, and new stars that will stay in the continent and not necessarily leave at a very young age, and of course build audiences in every single country that will be participating. And the qualification process will be big for that.
How important is that? I guess to have a real tangible collaboration with the NBA, because it's not just dialogue or around Olympics, but this is more a co-working kind of project. I mean, is that something, do you think, as the two big dominant entries or entities in basketball, that's important, that might develop into other projects and other ways that you can grow the game together?
I think it has had so far a long trajectory that shows that when the strategies, at least the heart of the strategy of every organization, of each organization, is aligned to the other, this is just a great opportunity to make the sport bigger. Other federations, other organizations come to me and they say, you are an example of how a federation works with a professional league. And we believe that. Now, from a simple agreement for release of players back at the end of 80s to then the Basketball Without Borders, 2001, then now going as far as having a league together in Africa, and a collaboration that we will announce very soon on the Junior NBA. I think all these are steps in the same direction. How we can make basketball the biggest sports community in the world, which is our mission. And at the same time, how to unite the basketball community, which is also part of our mission.
Something parochial. Great Britain. Obviously, they're doing quite well, women's at Eurobasket this year. But it's a federation that has its problems. It's slightly disjointed. How much do you guys look at what's happening there? How do you think you might help them get through this transition in a country which is a big potential market, of course, which probably is punching very much below its weight?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I think we have basketball administration colleagues there working hard. It's not easy in an environment where the medal potential is the basic criterion for funding. For other federations, it's hard to understand how a big country with a healthy economy has not supported basketball, such a popular sport, as much. From our side, both through our regional office in Munich and through the headquarters, we try to support at every level, whether that is, and that has been to some extent some public or not so public lobbying to the authorities when the moment of truth came, that was recently, or when it comes to programs, or when it comes to the participation of the national teams in international competition. And we're really happy. I met today Maurice Watkins, and he was with a big smile for how Team GB is performing in this FIBA Women's Eurobasket.
What would your message be to those government authorities, the ones that have the money? Because this is such a global sport. A lot of the money in the UK goes to sports which aren't particularly global. They're quite easier medals, I guess, at Olympics level. What would your message be to them about what basketball could deliver in the UK with a little bit of help?
I would say two things. One, basketball has two disciplines, traditional basketball and 3-on-3 basketball. And in both, Great Britain, the way they have started working and with the amount of talent that we see in the talent pool there, they have a potential. They have a potential of making it to the Olympics and doing something good there. Because please don't forget, if you make it to the Olympics in 3-on-3, you're one of 8. And the medal potential is very big. That is one. And the second is, it's not just medal potential. It is what basketball brings to the communities. And we're a team sport, and a sport that is very diverse, that is opening its arms for everyone, regardless of the background and regardless of any beliefs, religions, or anything. So we believe in the power of basketball to unite. We have the famous Basketball for Good programs, and our federations, from mini basketball to the elite, are bringing this message to the society. And this is a message that cannot be ignored.
Last thing, you've started this journey now. In 10 years' time, how would you like FIBA to look, if a little differently?
Well, that's a lot of time ahead. there is no doubt that for international federations like ours to continue this successful journey, we need to be adapting to the times. IOC President Thomas Bach said, change or be changed. So we did change our governance in 2014. We became more inclusive. The NBA sits on our board. A player's representative sits on our board. I think gradually we can become even more inclusive. The promoters on 3-on-3 will become part of our governance gradually. And the leagues in Europe, for example, there are 3 leagues co-opted to the board. I see therefore a FIBA which is even more inclusive, more modern in the way of administering the sport. This doesn't mean that we will become a for-profit business. No, we're non-for-profit, but we need to generate the necessary resources to reinvest them in our sport. And yes, I would expect to see women's basketball at least a couple of steps higher than today.
That would be a nice start.
Yes, I guess so.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, those are the thoughts of FIBA Secretary General Andreas Zagklis. Now, let's remind you that the British Basketball All-Stars Championship is returning on Sunday, October the 13th. Copperbox Arena in London, the venue. 8 of the BBL's very best teams doing battle in this fantastic tournament, which will be live on Sky Sports. Now, it features 12-minute games, an all-star 5-point line, and the golden buzzer power play. And the British Basketball All-Stars Championship promises to be a non-stop afternoon of fast-paced hoops action. Now, the tournament again showcasing the very best of British basketball talent, with defending champion Surrey Scorchers out to defend the title they won 12 months ago. If you want to get your tickets, and you really should, get them now online at allstarsbasketball.co.uk. Now that's it for this edition of the MVP Cast. Another one coming very soon. Don't forget you can get all the past editions via your preferred podcast provider or head to our website at mvp247.com. Another one coming very soon. But from me, Mark Woods, it's bye for now.